This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the Seven Mountains Media Production, your daily talk show, the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
Great to be with you on this Tuesday. It doesn't matter whether you like him or hate him. That's what, by the way, makes a great TV rating. There's a segment of the population that loves Tom Brady, and there's a segment of population wanted to see Tom Brady go down in flames every week.
Me.
Okay. It doesn't matter whether you love the Dallas Cowboys or you want to see them go down in flames every week. It draws people to watch. Aaron Rodgers is that kind of player. He certainly has his detractors that want to see him lose, especially in this scenario with the Jets. And there are people out there that loved how he played the game and found him to be an exciting player. It doesn't matter either way. You do not in any way, shape, or form sit back and take any joy on this particular day when any athlete goes down with what appears to be a season-ending injury. This is the type of injury Kobe Bryant had that he had to come back from. I've seen several players, from Tim Frazier to a couple football players, also go through this kind of injury, but they weren't trying to come back at the age of 40. Which is going to make it even more problematic. Nobody roots for that. It was awful to see last night. I knew what it was when it happened. As soon as it went down, I thought that might be his Achilles. All right. I was like, uh-oh, because he's like, he didn't get up. And I was like, uh-oh. And I didn't like how the tackle happened, just the way his left ankle was pinned underneath and turned. And you're worried that that's what it happened to be. But if anybody sits there today and takes any joy at all that he got hurt last night, you need to re-examine your life.
It was just confirmed on social media by Tom Pelissero, Diana Rossini as well. New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers has a torn Achilles. The MRI confirmed it.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay for you to not like him. It's okay for you to root against him. It's okay for you to take joy when he loses, but don't take any joy when a guy gets hurt, ever. He played 4 plays this year. That's it. With 3 plays?
4 plays. Four plays, 1 drive. That was all he got. And
That's all they got.
He's out till next year.
And, yeah, but he's also 40. Out till next year, and my experience of watching guys come back from Achilles injuries is that the first year you're good enough and you're functional. It's the second year where now things fall into place. I mean, look at the burst that Disa Isaac's playing with now. I mean, look at the burst he's playing with. He played well toward the end of last season when he was finally like a year and a half removed from the darn thing. And he's in his early 20s.
The only guy who I can think of who's had a comeback to their same status in terms of post-injury would be, Kevin Durant, maybe, after he tore his Achilles?
Kobe played. No,
Kobe.
But 2 years. The first year, you're functional. Okay? And in other words, when I mean functional, like you're at 75, 80%. The second year, like you're all the way back. And, Kobe did that and obviously closed out with a flourish in his career. The Steelers have injury problems. Cam Hayward's out 8 weeks. Deontay Johnson's going to miss a few weeks at wide receiver to go with the fact that they did not put together what you would call a sterling opening game performance. Josh Allen last night, 4 turnover night, as he said after the game, quote, it was eerily similar to last year.
Who had a worse loss, would you put? Would you say it was the Bills with Josh Allen losing to the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets because they didn't have him for anything meaningful in that game? Or would it be the Giants getting 40-0'd against the Cowboys at home?
I think all 16 that did not win are equal.
Right. It's the right answer.
Because it's a game. Right? You don't know out of that game. Okay, now let's see what happens this week. 0-2 to the playoffs is a little more problematic. You still have 15 to go, so I would say 0-3 is a benchmark. Yeah. Okay, let's take the last year Jacksonville did not have Trevor Lawrence. they won their opening game over Indianapolis. They never won a game the rest of the season.
Nope.
So I don't take anything from week one and then start building what a resume is going to be down the road for anybody. For all we know, the Giants have a different, I don't even know who they're playing this week, but a different matchup. Let's see how they play. Bills have a different matchup coming up. Let's see how they play. You go. I mean, the Vikings lost their opening game to Tampa Bay. They play Thursday night when they've got Philadelphia, and that game will be at the Link. Philadelphia won its opener, but to be honest with you, I wasn't bowled over by watching them play, but it is September. And in September, you have so few contributing players that play in preseason games, which means the tackling is usually mediocre to good, not great, which means maybe the sharpness and the crispness of the game is not as great. The passing games aren't as crisp as maybe they could be. It usually is by the end of this month where they've played enough games where now they're getting into the groove of tackling, getting into the groove of route running, getting into the groove of delivering a crisp slant route. It's usually the end of the month you start to find out who really is on their way to playing. So I don't take anything off the opening week. I think all the 16 teams that lost are in the boat of, okay, let's figure out how to get to 1-1. And the 16 teams that won are all trying to figure out a way to get to 2-0. So I don't, I don't delve into what's worse or what's better because it's 1 week.
One person who I think has had himself a good week one, is a guy many people probably would not have heard of. There's 2 guys on this Jets team that I want to talk about. Number 1, Jordan Whitehead. Safety.
Penn State wanted him.
He ended the game with 3 interceptions on Josh Allen and earned himself a $250,000 bonus in his contract, which stated if he has 3 picks on a season, he gets it. And he got it in week 1, which must feel pretty good.
He was good with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay in what was a good Tampa Bay secondary, but he was good. He's always had the ability to be in the right spot, right time. I thought he played very well at Pitt. You could tell he was a cut above, with all due respect, most of the other Pitt players in the secondary when he played against Penn State. I'm not surprised he's in the pros and succeeding. He's a good football player. Is he a great player? No, but he's a good football player.
Good guy. You can start him. You can feel confident in his ability. And the second one is the man who ended the game last night. The game ended with a Joe Buck call for the ages.
Yeah, it was a great call.
Xavier Gibson, I believe, was the wide receiver who came in, and he's a Hard Knocks legend now because in the latest Hard Knocks episode, they highlighted him being told he made the roster, and he was excited, happy, overjoyed, and then he ends the game on a 65-yard punt return touchdown.
Was he the USFL guy?
I believe he was.
And so, and that's why they have that spring league, so they can take a few guys here and there and they can prove themselves and get themselves to the NFL level. And it was a fabulous play, and Joe Buck, as usual, with a call that matched the moment, which was fabulous. I will point out, obviously, Quinnen Williams is Quinnen Williams, but Breece Hall, coming back from his injury and played brilliantly last night, including an 83-yard run. When they were stuck back in their own 5-yard line, he was able to rip off an 83-yard run and change the dynamics of the game. Because if they were able to get a 3-and-out, they were going to get the ball at probably the 45 or 50-yard line with a short field to work with and all the momentum with Rodgers out of the game. And Hall's 83-yard run took a lot of pressure off Wilson last night. And I thought that was an important moment for the Jets.
It was an interesting week one. Week one has now come and gone. A lot of teams, I think many expect to be these big powerhouses this year, lost, which I don't think many saw coming. So, of course, we said the Bills lost. The Giants, a team people thought would be playoff contenders. They made the playoffs last year.
Bengals.
They were a big one. The Bengals, the Seahawks, the Chargers lost.
Vikings.
Broncos country, let's ride. They lost. A lot of these teams that many thought would be a home run hit just got off to a very, very slow start. Not a lot of players had a good start to the season unless your name was like Tua Tagovailoa. That might be the only guy who had a good start to the season. I mean, apparently his odds of winning the MVP went up. Mahomes went down after they lost to the Lions. It's week 1 and everyone's overreacting. And I missed seeing all these overreaction Monday type of shows. So on Tuesday, we can discuss how they're terribly, ridiculously overreacting, and it's hilarious. I think it's fun. It's enjoyable. Just like how the Saints are going to clearly win the division 17-0.
See, I'm too calm for you.
You are. And I'm too energetic for you. We're good. We're a good mix.
Nah, you're terrific. I think you need to have somebody on the show that wants to do something like that because when it comes to certain things, I could be a downer. Yeah. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it.
Well, I guess to go to a downer subject, I do want to discuss Aaron Rodgers more. Not him per se, but the topic around him. And this has been the very big point. It was made by David Bakhtiari, the former Rodgers teammate and one of the best O-linemen in the NFL past decade or however long, of the grass versus turf discussion, that the NFL plays on the turf fields. MetLife is a turf field. It's been discussed for years how it's a terrible playing surface.
It is.
And that for the World Cup in 2026, all the teams that have the World Cup games are switching to grass for the games. And so Bakhtiari's point and many NFL players' points have been, well, if you can do it for the World Cup, you should be able to do it. Well,
I think they bring in trays of grass and they put it down over the turf. I mean, it's a requirement for the World Cup. All right. First of all, I will say forever and ever, the game should be played on grass. The problem, for example, at Acrisure Stadium, for example, are the number of games played in that facility. That's why the grass is so bad there. You have Pitt, the Steelers, and then when you get to the month of November, the number of high school games in the WPIAL, and at that point you can't grow grass again when it gets to that stage of the season. When Penn State played at Yankee Stadium in the Pinstripe Bowl, they played all the city championships there a couple of weeks earlier, and the turf was not in great shape. But if you can take care of a grass field and have the ability to do it, there's just nothing like it. There's a give to it that is terrific. There is, it looks great. There's just so many elements to it. Giant Stadium at one point was grass. They did put grass in there at one point. They started out with artificial turf, then they switched to grass, but they had trouble maintaining it. And that was the problem. Michigan switched from artificial turf to grass, had trouble maintaining it. Ohio State did. Iowa did. All these places switched over to grass for a period of time. As I did games where it was like that. Gillette Stadium, they had switched over to grass. Houston was grass. I mean, even indoors, Houston was grass.
Well, this is where the discussion of, and like as a soccer fan, you're seeing these stadiums built now where they have this crazy technology where the two stadiums that are being highlighted by a lot of players is Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and the brand new opened up a week ago Real Madrid Santiago Bernabeu, where they have the technology where they literally open up the floor, the stadium and the grass comes in and it's basically on gigantic pads and it's stored in a greenhouse below the stadium and it's maintained and all of it and kept and all of these things, and then it's brought back up and they have 4 or 5 services below there. So like for Tottenham, they have theirs. They've got one for a concert. They've got one for, I believe, NFL games, like all these different things.
All right.
So the question a lot of players have been asking is, why can't we do that? Why is this not being done by these teams that are building these stadiums where a Vegas or a Los Angeles or a somebody, why don't they do this?
Well, Vegas does. Vegas plays on grass.
But
Vegas has 2 surfaces. Okay, Vegas has an artificial turf surface that they use for college games. They have a grass surface they use for the Raiders, and they'll use a grass surface for the Super Bowl.
But the question, I guess, is why don't they do this?
Is it really sick? I know all these things.
It is a little sick, these things.
Arizona, they just played the Super Bowl in Arizona. That was not the Cardinals' turf they played on. They actually grew a field, brought it in, and look, here's my issue with all this. It's 2023. okay, you haven't figured out yet how to do this? I mean, come on. It's 2023. We've advanced 5,000 ways here. Right? Get a nice deep root system, put it in there, instead of just going to some sod field and plopping it down. To let the thing grow.
And
I mean, I know that you change fields. I mean, let's say if you were to go to Medler Field or Bronto Park, you're going to see a site you haven't seen here since they built the park, right? It's dirt piled up everywhere, right? Because for the first time ever, they're taking that field out. That field has been in for 17 years, right? And they do wear down over a period of time, but artificial turf wears down too. I remember walking across the field at Michigan, because you have to walk through that tunnel and then walk across the field to then go up to the press box. So Jack and I are walking across the field. This is, I don't know, 5-6 years ago what it was. I looked at Jack and said, this field stinks. Right? And it was field turf. Like I said, this thing is old and worn. I said, we're looking down, it was bad. So every field wears out. But sports, I don't care whether it's baseball, I don't care whether it's football, okay, or soccer. In my opinion, grass is the name of the game. Play on grass. Now, look, I know I did a game at Indiana once where it was 2002. And Jerry DiNardo wanted a new indoor practice facility. So he practiced every single day in the stadium. Well, when Penn State came in as the last game of the season, we walked out on the field. I usually like to go out in the field like before the game, just walk around, just check the surface out, whatever. All right, and then go up to the box if I have a couple minutes. I might not this week because Illinois wants me to record something with them. But I remember we walked in that field. It was because it was the end of the year and they'd practiced almost every day on it. For the most part, it was painted green sand to look good on TV. And Larry Johnson still ran for 327 yards, which was remarkable. 327.
crazy.
But it was painted green sand because they had worn it to heck. Grass is the way to go all the time. All the time. When Jack played, he played on Monsanto artificial turf. Okay. And the number of scrapes that those guys got and the chemicals they put on the field when it got to be bad weather, right, would be unthinkable today. You get fewer scrapes and abrasions playing on field turf, with the pellets in there, which is always fun because I'll walk across one of the artificial fields and all the pellets are all in my shoes. It's like, okay, great. Gotta take the shoes off, dump them out. So it's better, but it's not the way to go. I mean, you look at, let's see, the new additions in the Big Ten, USC and UCLA both play on grass, but Oregon and Washington both play on field turf. And for all the players that are complaining that the game should be played on grass, you are not going to be injury-free playing on grass. And I'll give you an example. Penn State played its opening game a few years ago when Matt Rule was the coach at Temple. The link is a grass field, but theirs is done with trays. Penn State got a few injuries in that game, and everybody said it's one of the worst. And it was an opening game, one of the worst surfaces they had ever played on. That was grass. So you can play on a bad grass field. You can. But to me, outside of a game like the Citrus Bowl I did when Penn State beat LSU, where it rained and the field was coming up in chunks. But again, what was the story on it? Overuse. They had played the Champs Sports Bowl there a few days earlier with Wisconsin and Miami. They had played all the high school football championship games, and the field was worn to heck, and it was a monsoon. But that was also the last game they played on grass. But, Kyle, I'm with you. It should be grass, 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 grass. You look in the Big Ten. Who has grass? Penn State, Michigan State, Northwestern, Purdue. That's it. I don't think anybody else has grass in the Big Ten. Iowa used to. Michigan used to. Ohio State used to. They changed out. It
just doesn't make sense to me to see all these teams be like, oh, we love our turf surface. And you can see, looking at, for me, it's like I'm watching these soccer teams build these stadiums, or just them, like the Bernabeu with Real Madrid, one of the biggest teams in the world, and they completely redid their stadium, and it literally has a retractable pitch.
Yes.
They can keep stored underground, underneath where it has to be, and then just bring it up the night before, and it's good to go for the game. Like, how has an NFL team not at least attempted this or thought about this? There are two of the biggest stadiums in the world over in Europe. Both have this technology. It's been known for a while because this wasn't something they developed in the last 2 years put in when they did the designs. No. This was discussed in 2015 when these plans were announced.
All right. So let's start with this. Here's the bothersome part. There is more money in sports than they ever dreamed they would have. Let's go back 10 years. Did you think that each Big Ten school would be getting about 75 to 80 million per? I mean, did anybody think that? Right? Nobody thought that. In the NFL, did they think they would get a 10-year contract? Right? In the billions? Okay? There are ways to spend money. And where you put the money back in. What's interesting about the TV contracts in the NFL is the ticket prices have not gone down. The luxury suite money has not gone down. The parking prices have not gone down. Where's the money going? Maybe instead of lining pockets, you can still make a nice, healthy profit, but invest it in the safety of the players and give them at least the best chances. You're not going to be injury-free, but give them the best chance and put a really good grass surface in a stadium. And you got to change it out, so what? You have 9 more years to go on the TV contract, which, by the way, pays for the players. Okay? And that's the part that people don't get. It pays for the players, right? The cap is equal to the TV number. It always has been. Well, the cap's going to go up this year. Oh, that's because the TV number went up. Right? Has anybody ever figured that? I swear, I never hear anybody talk about that. That they're like within a couple million of each other. So everything else that you get, advertising put up on the stadium walls, right? Luxury suites, parking, tickets. That's just money that's lining pockets at that point. Okay? You got to put money back in. You can't just take well, this is the cheapest way to do it. And that's sure, I think that what they look at it. Now, the other element is concerts are an issue. They are an issue. And, for example, MetLife has had Bruce Springsteen, they've had Metallica, and others that have been in there. I think they had 5 events in 5 days at MetLife.
Beyonce, Taylor Swift, all this summer and this fall.
Right. Okay. Concerts kill fields when they're grass fields.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an issue. Even when Blake Shelton came in here for one game, they had to resod the entire area where the stage was and the walk-up ramp. They had to resod it in Beaver Stadium just for one.
That's why I look at what Tottenham has, where they literally have it built so they have 4 or 5 surfaces sitting there below. They have 1 and 2 that are their playing surfaces. They have 1 that's an NFL grade surface. I believe it's grass. And then they have 1 for just general use for concerts. And they have 1 built for other extra purposes later as well. Like they have these different surfaces sitting here below their stadium.
Right, but those are modern stadiums that have been built since all these other places are played. In other words, the investment it would take. Now, Lambeau's grass.
Yeah.
All right. So Lambeau's grass. that stadium was built in the 1960s. Right? It's hard to retrofit a place like that.
But look at Real Madrid and the Bernabeu. They just did this.
Right.
That stadium has been around forever.
Right.
And they brought everything in straight down,
Right.
did the bottom, and built it back up to the top. They didn't remove any of the siding or any of that stuff. They just built the bottom brand new and replaced some things on the outside to make it look a little more modern, a little nicer. But the stadium itself is still the same stadium. It's still in the same location, same everything. The concrete's still where it used to be. They just redid the sides, redid all of it. Do you not think that's possible for MetLife Stadium to do?
Of course it is, because they have so many events there. It's a ton of money.
And that's the thing. If anyone's to do it, MetLife is the one that should be doing
it. You look at the SEC schools in the South. SEC schools. Texas is grass. Texas A&M is grass. Alabama, Auburn. Hey, they're all grass. LSU. They're all grass. Right? Let's see. Georgia, Florida. Grass. I mean, I have not been to Georgia Stadium. I've been inside the swamp. Obviously, I've been to Auburn, been to Alabama. I've been to Texas, but they're all grass. It's you feel defeated when Notre Dame changes, because Notre Dame changed and they're now field turf. But there's nothing like, to me, playing on it. It's the right thing to do. In my opinion, it is not the reason why he hurt it. I think it's just the nature of the tackle. I think if he's on grass, there's a good chance the same injury happens. But I think it's a very fair thing to talk about overall, because games were meant to be played on grass. And now, is it better than when Jack played? Those guys got beat up on that stuff every week. And they put that, and it was terrible. There was very little padding. It was just a green carpet over concrete with a little pad underneath it. And they threw chemicals on there in bad weather. Nobody had a thought process 50 years ago. Right? Now it's 2023. We need to think like it's 2023, and I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, a place like MetLife should have something like that. SoFi Stadium is an open-air stadium. Right? And that is not grass. Now, I realize it's covered the whole thing, but it's got light that comes through it. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are into this, well, we have to worry about water, like golf courses. We've seen we're really conscious about water. Just throw some water on, for goodness sakes.
They over out west in LA could have looked at what their stadium was built the same timeline that the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was built in.
Yep.
Exact same timeline, all of this stuff. How they did not think about the playing surface
SoFi?
at all with SoFi. I don't get it.
SoFi thought about it in this realm of what we just talked about. Concerts, Chargers, Rams, National Championship, all being played on it, and the constant use of it, because in order to have a place like that, you have to constantly keep turning it over all the time.
But if the plan was out for Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which it was before SoFi was announced, they could have seen that and said, that's a good idea. There's no way they didn't see it. There's only so many people that build stadiums in the world.
And SoFi is
and you would
really
think
expensive.
It's Los Angeles. It's Los Angeles. You'd think, okay,
well, it's Stan Kroenke.
But that's the even bigger thing, is he owns Arsenal. Arsenal's directly, they're rivals with Tottenham, so they see exactly what's happening. Yeah. He could have been like, that's really interesting. They're building the stadium with this underground thing that can store 5 surfaces on it.
I know.
And look what Tottenham now gets. Right. They get the NFL. They get Beyonce. They get these crazy concerts because they have the capacity to do all of this with no issue. No anything.
And by the way, they use heat lamps and so forth when the grass surface is out of the way. They use heat lamps.
But do you think that the Rams and the Chargers, I guess as well, couldn't afford to have done that?
Chargers are a renter.
But even so, The money that Stan Kroenke's getting from his team and the rent he's charging the Chargers, $19.95 a month, he couldn't have paid to make that stadium have the ability to do that. If anywhere again was going to do it, you'd think MetLife, you'd think SoFi, and like Hard Rock.
But they don't think that way. I think they're starting to think that way now, but they didn't think that when they built it. Because I've done a game in MetLife. I did the Penn State Syracuse game 10 years ago in MetLife, as a matter of fact. And when it was built, Giant Stadium. Now MetLife never had grass. Giant Stadium, they went artificial turf, then they went grass, then the grass got all torn up, then they put artificial turf back in, then they built MetLife. Okay. When they built it, they weren't thinking this. And again, with the World Cup, they can bring in grass and put it down. So, because they've done that before. And that's the thought process behind it. The thought process is we'll just bring it in. And the thought process is not let's build something forward-thinking like Tottenham. And the same designers of that are the same ones that are going to work on Beaver Stadium, by the way. It's the old HOK. I don't know. I can't remember what they're referred to as now. But it's not like they have never considered putting in field turf here. It's been at least brought up in meetings like, hey, what do you guys think? No, let's keep going with grass. Have you ever walked on this field?
Yeah.
Right. It's like playing on a field turf surface that's grass. It is so perfect, right? Michigan State's field is really good. Purdue's field's okay. Northwestern, they won't let anybody walk on it. Can't walk on this thing.
So Kyle Field, I think.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Field.
Ryan Field.
That's why at Williamsport, Major League Baseball, because they play the one game a year there, Major League Baseball puts in a new field every year, puts in the field, and they take care of it all year. The city of Williamsport does not. And I told you the story about it. I was talking to somebody on the warning track outside the dugout. Ball got away from somebody. So I walked up, just pick it up, and just toss it back. One of the guards, hey, you can't walk out there. I said, I can't walk out there? He says, no, you can't. It'll damage the field. I said, you've got 18 guys with cleats that are running on this field right now. I said, my loafers are not going to do damage, right? And he looked at me and went, yeah, you're right.
It's something I don't understand. We will not really get an answer on. I know.
But I think it's a very fair topic, and I am 100% behind the movement to have grass in stadiums, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, something. I mean, even the Astrodome. When the Astrodome was built, do you want to know what the original surface was? Grass. When the Astrodome was built, it was grass, and they actually had it where you could see through the top of the dome. And they're like, there's too much glare, too much this, so they had to cover it up. And when they covered it up, they said we have to come up with something. And thus, Astros, AstroTurf, Astrodome. Yeah. So that's why it's AstroTurf.
So it would not shock me or surprise me if when the CBA expires in 2030, their NFL players attempt to put in a clause about making all surfaces grass.
Yeah, but again,
it's not going to happen, but that would be...
That contract has 9 years to run.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. Okay, it's not going to happen. And the only way it's going to happen is that these clowns will sit there. And this is the part that bothers me a little bit. Well, if you want that, then we want this. You can't do it that way. You've got to be able to look at somebody and say, hey, look, can we talk about this? Yeah, you know what? This is fair. Let's talk about it. And just sit down instead of being adversarial and say, oh, I need something back from you. No, you don't. Not every single time.
If this were to be put in, and they were to say, but we need something from you, what you're getting is a healthy Aaron Rodgers for an extra full season, or a healthy Saquon, or a healthy Nick Bosa, because he hurt his leg and his Achilles or ACL in MetLife. Like these guys,
Saquon hurt his knee. It was on grass.
But it's the point of like
it was at Soldier Field.
But there's just so many guys. I remember October of 21, that the weird COVID-y season, where MetLife had, I believe it was like 10 or 11 more injuries through like middle of October.
Yes.
And everyone's like, this is the issue. And the NFL was like, no, it's not. You can see the numbers are the same with grass. And it's like, well, clearly it's not if you're getting more injuries here than anywhere else by a wide margin.
Right. So let's just take a tour around the NFL, okay? Gillette went from grass, now they're artificial turf. So that's one. Buffalo's artificial. The new stadium will be artificial. Miami's grass. Jets artificial. That's 3. Okay. So now we get to the north. Cincinnati artificial. So that's 4. Cleveland's grass. Pittsburgh's grass. And Baltimore, when grass, one season artificial, went back to grass. Okay. So that's what? How many?
We're 4 and 4. We're currently tied at 4. So hold some fingers up for listeners who are watching.
So now let's go to the south. I believe Carolina has switched to artificial turf.
Mm-hmm. They just did recently.
Right. So that's 5. Atlanta's artificial. That's 6. New Orleans is artificial. 7. Tampa is grass. Okay. Let's go out to the west. In the west, Seattle's artificial. Los Angeles is artificial. Arizona is grass. Okay. And Seattle, Arizona, San Francisco's grass. Okay. So that's the NFC.
9 versus 7.
Okay. So now let's go to the AFC. Actually, I didn't do the NFC East. I think I'll start with the AFC East.
Yeah.
The NFC East, obviously the Giants, artificial. Philadelphia, grass.
Mm-hmm.
Washington, grass. Dallas, artificial.
2 and 2.
Okay. Chicago, grass. Green Bay, grass. Detroit, Minnesota, artificial. Let's see. AFC South. Let's see.
Houston.
Indianapolis, Houston's artificial. They were grass forever, and they switched to artificial. Indianapolis is artificial. Jacksonville's grass, and Tennessee is grass. So that's 2 and 2. We go and see. I guess we only have the AFC West left, right? Denver's grass. Chargers artificial.
Oakland or the Raiders.
Raiders are grass. And who's the last one out there?
Chargers.
No, I did
Chiefs.
Chargers. Chiefs are grass.
Okay.
So we ended up pretty much 16-16, right?
16 and 16. Perfectly even.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I just don't think it would take much. I mean, I understand the thought process of Minnesota, Detroit, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not retractable roofs.
Yeah.
Neither one happened to be. I know. I did games in the old Metrodome.
Mm-hmm.
I've only walked past this place, I don't know, about 15 times, but I've never gone in because Penn State hasn't played a game there, but our hotel's right next to it.
Yeah.
I've never seen Ford Field, and I won't until Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, I can understand that part of it. I understand the rain issue up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Right. But I know Safeco is a retractable roof. Okay. And they play on grass. The Mariners play on grass. They do.
You know who else plays on grass there? I believe the Sounders play on grass.
No, the Sounders play where the Seahawks play.
Oh. Interesting.
I think they play in the Seahawks Stadium.
They do. They play in Lumen Field.
You act like I know nothing about soccer. You are shocked. You are stunned every time I come up with a. Yeah, they all play there. Yeah,
you are correct.
Husky Stadium is where Washington plays is artificial, and Autzen Stadiums are artificial. But I think it's just better for the game. Does it take more money? Yes, but you're getting more money than ever.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. You're investing money in player performance all the time, more than ever. Okay. You're investing in chip systems to find about running and rest and things like that. You're investing in blue lights for an early game to see if that blue lights get you up and ready to go earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You're investing in stuff like that. Hey, here's one of the basics. Hey, it's all about, hey, they're the product.
Would you rather watch Mike White or Aaron Rodgers? Like that's the current funny question. Or Zach Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is the real question right now. And I think
the quarterback's going to get banged up on any surface. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the nature of the game. I mean, you can't, like we mentioned, Saquon tore his ACL, and they were playing on grass that they just got hit the wrong way. And Rodgers got hit the wrong way, but I would rather see the games on grass anyway.
Agreed.
But he just got hit in such a way where that left leg was pinned. Now, did being on that surface make the cleat dig in?
Possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Could it be less severe? Maybe. Could be like an Achilles strain instead of a tear? Maybe. I mean, those are all things you don't know until it happens. It's not as if injuries don't happen on grass. They do.
But again, 16 of the stadiums you said are grass, 16 are artificial. Yeah. 2 of the stadiums knock out 4 of the teams artificial turf-wise.
Right, that's right.
Just so off the bat, you can make it 20 and 12 just really easily.
Yeah.
Which seems like the most logical thing. Is like, okay, MetLife should...
But they're the ones that are going to say because they have multiple teams playing there, they need the artificial surface.
But that's when you look at...
I'm just telling you that that's what their argument will be.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't agree with you, because they do.
Oh, Steve.
I agree with you.
I know. It pains me. I have a lot of friends that are Jet fans, and seeing them in this way. There's now this discussion this morning of who did the Jets go to? Do they try and sign Tom Brady or Nick Foles? Or do they trust Zach Wilson?
They're not going to sign Tom Brady.
Brady's not coming out of retirement.
Tom Brady is done.
He
looked very relaxed the other day.
He's happily a part-time minority owner in the Raiders. He's loving life.
He looked around and said, geez, look how Mac Jones is getting hit. I feel good.
Yeah. You know who's happy right now, though, in the NFL? Chris Jones. Got himself a nice big 1-year, $25 million chunk of change.
They can use him.
They could definitely use him. It always helps to have another anchor somewhere, and he's the ultimate defensive line anchor. But he has the new 1-year contract, $25 million. He does not have a clause preventing a franchise tag, though, so he can get tendered next season by the Chiefs. So that can happen, but his incentives are a little bit crazy in this contract. So he gets $1 million for playing 35% of the playing time, $1 million in addition for 50% playing time, or $1.25 million for 10 sacks, and then $500,000 for 15 more sacks on a top of the 1.25, and then $1 million if he's selected All-Pro and the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, and $2 million if he wins Defensive Player of the Year and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. So,
did I ever tell you the Joe Paterno story about contract?
You did not.
Okay, there's a couple, but one is when it came time later in his career. They came up with a contract for him. All those years with Eric Walker and those guys, he had handshake agreements, the whole deal. So he gets a contract, and Tim Curley said, "Hey, here's a clause in here for graduation rate. Here's a clause in here for winning the Big Ten championship. Here's a clause in here for making a bowl game. Here's a clause in here for winning the national championship." You know what Joe's response was? "Why do I need all that?" They said, "Well, this is the way contracts are done today." He says, "Yeah, but isn't that my job?"
He's not wrong. I guess a lot of teams can justify these bigger numbers by having these incentives in there. So see a guy sign for a 1-year 20, but it's really a 1-year 10 with $10 million of incentives that he can hit over time. Because that's why these contracts, like the NBA is the one place where you really kind of see like the number you're given. And then on top of it, because of the guarantees and how that works, the NFL is not as guarantee heavy unless your name is Deshaun Watson as other places are. So it's contracts are weird. And Chris Jones got himself a good one, but I wonder what it's going to look like next year when he gets tendered, most likely. And then he's like, well, I don't want to play. And they're like, well, too bad. You signed this contract. You got to deal with it.
Right. I mean, I realize that's how incentives work. I've got
I know.
that. I mean, I realize that. And at the same time, like, you see stuff like that, and I always think about that part. Well, isn't that like my job? Isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing? I mean, you can't help, if you're selected to a Pro Bowl. I mean, others have to vote for it. You could have a great season and somebody else gets more votes. I mean, it's the way it goes. Like, you were up against Aaron Donald. Darn.
I was gonna. Did you see the video of I forget if it was Geno Smith in the Seahawks-Rams game?
Yes, I did.
And he all of a sudden sees Aaron Donald turn the corner, get past the O-line, and he yells an expletive we cannot say on this show, and just gets rid of the ball. It's just like, oh no, throws it away immediately. He's like, I'm not dealing with that. And everyone on Twitter was just like, yeah, we get it. Even the Seahawks posted it like, yeah, we understand, man.
Yeah.
If there was one player you don't want to see bearing down on you, I think it would be that guy.
Well, there's a whole bunch. They're all faster than me. It's amazing how, just as a total tangent, unless you're on the sideline, I don't think you know how fast these guys really are going. And you try to, at practice, you try to position yourself in such a way where you are not a casualty. It's really important, so you try to make sure you're behind what's going on. Every once in a while, you can't avoid it. So you're like, you're back or like far enough back, because there are times where guys even just caught a ball or didn't, and both guys are flying by. The speed with which they're going by, if you were to reach out and try to hit, they'd rip your arm right out of your socket because of how fast they're going. It's amazing, the speed out there of elite athletes. It's unreal. But that's just an aside.
Is there a player I just want to talk about that a little bit more. Is there a player you've seen where you saw them from the booth and you're like, oh, they look like whatever speed they are, average, whatever, and you see them up close and you're like, oh no, they are flying. Like there's all these O linemen now who are running like these 4.7s, 4.740s, and you're like, that's ridiculous.
Olu runs. I think Olu's slightly under 5. Slightly. But Olu can run. I mean, he can just flat out fly. You watch Micah Parsons. I got to watch Micah Parsons up close and personal at practice. Like, can flat out move. Jason Oweh can move. Saquon can move. I mean, these guys all can move. Drew Hartlaub, though, is the fastest guy I've seen. I'll never forget that Journey Brown ran a 4.29. Wow. And he was the third fastest guy in the team. They finally got KJ Hamler to run a 40 because he wouldn't run 40. He's like, I don't want to run that. They said, look, you got to do it. They finally got him to run it. 4.27.
Oh, my God.
He was the second fastest guy. You know who the fastest guy? Hey? Special teams guy. Drew Hartlaub. Drew ran a 4.25 when he was here.
Oh, my.
Right? And on Pro Day, he steps up for Pro Day. And I think I was standing with Kim Jones from NFL Network, and Kim worked here at the Center of the LA Times for years. She covered basketball, football. Terrific person, great writer, has really done a terrific job in broadcasting. The two of us are standing there, and Hartlaub goes flying by, leaving a vapor trail. And James gets up and he yells out because James was yelling out times. He goes, fast, really fast. I said, well, that pretty much sums it up. It's hard to imagine. I mean, Deion Sanders was a 4.2 guy. He might have been 4.19. But that was a long time ago.
I mean, my favorite one to look at would be like DK Metcalf right now in the NFL. He ran a 4.33, which is fast, but like in terms of receivers, you think of the John Ross's 4.22s, I think, something like that. Chris Johnson could
Nicholas Singleton's
flat out fly.
Singleton's close to that.
Like that speed.
Yeah.
But then I remember, I believe a couple of years ago, he ran in the 100 meters at the World Championships in Oregon.
Yeah.
And he ran a 10.3 100-meter dash. And you say, that's crazy fast.
No.
And then you think about how fast Usain Bolt runs. And that's when you can put it into comparison.
Is it Lyle now that is
Noah Lyles?
Noah Lyles, who's the standard bearer for Paris next year? He
is currently, the flag bearer. But no one will ever beat the Usain Bolt. I remember watching.
No, but you know what?
Those Olympics. He's how tall is he? He is 6'5", 200 pounds
He's
of
long strider.
That was the thing. Was you always saw him against Gatlin and Johan Blake.
The training is so good now. Now you're talking about shaving off a 10th here or there, but they're all trying to figure out how to find that 10th. So can his records be broken? Yes, his records can be broken. I mean, let me just see. What is 100-meter record?
In terms of Noah Lyles, his top 100-meter record is what he got this year at the Worlds, which was 9.83.
Okay.
So that's what you're looking at for him. Usain Bolt, his record in the 09 championships, that was the one he set it with, 9.58. People don't understand how fast that is.
Sure it is.
This man moved the entire length of a football, like 100 meters. That's crazy.
Yeah.
In 9.5 seconds.
I know.
Like that's superhuman.
Yeah.
And I always love my favorite clip. I'm a clips guy. I love watching a good clip now and again, and I watched a lot of them.
Yeah, Bolt is one.
Bolt is number one. He's number one, number two.
Tyson Gay is second.
Mm-hmm. And then Bolt's got 7.
Yeah, Bolt's. Yeah.
He's fast, is the short of it.
Yeah,
but
he 9.58. He ran it in August of 2009 in Berlin.
That was the Worlds. But that's the thing, is you only see his top time. You don't see the rest of the times he has.
Yeah.
At that point, you'd be adding up. He's got, I think, 3 or 4 times below what Tyson Gay has at 9.69.
Yeah.
And you just be adding those in. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is just unfair. But
Noah Lyles.
Quick, man. 9.83, but he's got
9.83, yeah.
And the more intriguing kid right now is...
he is right now... Yeah, was he 20...
He's 20-something.
6.
Yeah.
He ran it in Budapest.
Mm-hmm. And there's the young, I forget what is his name. There's a young American kid who's, I'm trying to think of.
I'll tell you, Florence Griffith Joyner still has the women at 10.49. And in 1988, they have not broken her record.
Yeah. The one person who people think could break Bolt's record is currently, he's 19. It's Arian Knighton is his name.
Yeah.
He, in terms of his overall times, he's down to a 10-second 100-meter and a 19.49 200-meter. Just to kind of put that into a ballpark for you. And for those wondering at home, like, oh, how fast is a 19, like a 19 time for 19.49 for a 200-meter? That's the 5th fastest all time, and he's 19 years old. Noah Lyles is 19.31, and then the only ones faster than him are, no surprise, Johan Blake and Usain Bolt. I love watching the clips, though, just to get back to this, of in a soccer match, I believe it was the Copa, what was it? What match am I thinking of? This is the Spanish League Cup final. Barcelona, Real Madrid. Gareth Bale taps the ball around a player, I believe it was Montoya as right back. And he runs off the pitch around him, circles around him, gets to the ball, and then taps it home for the goal. And it was, at the time, the craziest thing anyone had seen, because this man started, like, had a running start, but was, I don't know, 10 yards away from this guy. The guy was farther downfield, runs all the way around him and beats him time-wise to get there. And some of the speed of players sometimes I think amazes people.
I know.
That no one understands how fast these guys are, as you said, until you watch them. As you said, a KJ Hamler or Drew Hartlob. These guys can, as you said, rip your arm off.
I mean, Hamler caught a slant over the middle, and Ohio State's covering him. And he went 93 yards for a touchdown, and nobody could catch him. You're like going, I mean, it wasn't like he caught the ball and was 10 yards behind everybody when he caught it. He blazed through traffic like it was nothing. By the way, Carl Lewis, of course, who won 9 gold medals. Trying to see what his top time was.
His 200-meter time was 19.75, which is a full half second back of Usain Bolt.
I mean, when he won in Los Angeles, he ran 9.99.
He crossed the 10 threshold. He was the first one to really do it. And he crossed 10, and Bolt is a near 9.5.
Well, Jimmy Hines did 9.99 in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Then he played briefly with the Dolphins. And we couldn't figure out how to. Okay. And then in 88,
was that?
He ran 9.92.
That was before Michael Johnson, right? Johnson was like the 90s.
He ran 9.92, which was the world record at the time when he ran in the 88 Olympics in Seoul. Now, that was the one where he actually finished second to Ben Johnson. Johnson ran 9.79. And about an hour later, they said, all that stuff you put in the cup, that's a problem.
Yeah. Just thinking about those times some of these guys run is sometimes a little crazy. Or the DK Metcalf catching, Buda Baker, running him down, and like just seeing him come into the frame slowly, and catch him at like the 5.
Yeah.
And watching the clip of it afterwards, the NFL put out of him being like, I don't even know where he came from, and him watching it on screen be like, dude, how did he catch me?
Yeah, see, I didn't feel that way when Leon Lett was caught by Don Beebe. I totally understood how he got caught.
So, Steve, you could what? You could catch, you think, Drew Aller running downfield if he gave you a 10-yard head start?
Nope. Drew, by the way, runs. Drew is not going to wow you with the watch, but he's quicker than people realize. And I've said that from the time. I said this last year. This is not a this year thing. I said this last year when he got into games last year and he took off a couple times. I said he's decisive and is quicker than you realize. All right? He kind of gets to top speed fast, but in the end, his top speed is not. Yeah. It's not going to be 9.92.
He's not outrunning Darius Hayward Bay.
No, he's not.
But that's okay because you'll catch him. You'll catch Drew Aller. I know you can.
So, again, the story is Aaron Rodgers is out for the year. It is a torn Achilles. And whether you like him or you don't is irrelevant. You do not root for guys to get hurt. You can root for the team he's playing on to not win, or for him to go 15 of 45. But you never root for anybody to get hurt.
Never do.
So it's a tough day in the league because they built a lot of their league TV schedule around the Jets and around him.
There's about to be a lot of flexing going on Sunday and Monday Night Footballs.
The Jets do have the defense to win, though.
Yeah. So we'll see how they do with Zach Wilson at the helm. Yeah. Back again for the Jets. And
so there you go. That's why, like Jason roots for injuries.
Oh boy,
no, it's just the way he is. I mean, now not big stuff. No, it's like they're playing the Rams.
Paper cut.
He's like hoping that like a Cooper Kupp or a Matthew Stafford, they just have a twinge,
stubs his toe,
have to be out a week. I mean, those are the kind of things he roots for. Nothing big.
Of course. Oh boy. Thanks for tuning in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production.
It's just the way he is.
Oh my God.
He's just a twinge. He doesn't root for the big stuff. He feels bad about the big stuff. But the hamstring's a little tight, can't go this week, but we'll be back next week.
This is what listeners come back for every day for the latest sports news and analysis and the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball.